When was the last time you experienced real silence? Not the kind of silence where you're alone in a room but your mind is screaming. Not the kind where you turn off your phone but the thoughts keep firing. Real silence. The kind of silence where even thoughts stop. Where the constant chatter of the mind finally quiets down. And in those moments, those rare and precious moments, you feel something that has no name, something you've been seeking your whole life but never knew how to find. Peace. Not the peace of having solved all your problems, not the peace of having controlled all the variables, but the peace that simply is. The peace that was here before the problems. The peace that will be here after the problems are gone. And then the mind returns. Thoughts come back. And you spend the next days, weeks, months, trying to recreate it, trying to find that place again. But what if you didn't need to find it? What if it never went away? What if the peace you're seeking is here, now, in this exact moment, just covered, drowned in the constant noise of the mind that never stops? If you're awake at 3 in the morning, if your mind won't let you rest, if you're tired of the constant internal noise, this video is for you. Because maybe you don't need to create peace. Maybe you just need to stop creating noise. The human mind produces, on average, 60 to 80,000 thoughts per day. 60,000 per day. Some are useful. Most aren't. Most are just noise, worry, planning, judgment, remembering, anticipating, self-criticism, fantasy. A constant, incessant stream of mental chatter that starts the moment you wake up and only stops when you finally, exhausted, fall asleep. And you've gotten so used to it, you've lived with it for so long that you don't even notice anymore. It's like living next to a highway. At first, the noise is deafening, but eventually, you stop hearing it. It becomes background. Except you never really stop hearing it. You just stop being conscious that you're hearing it. And this is worse, because the noise keeps affecting you, keeps draining you, keeps preventing you from accessing something deeper. And that's why you're tired. That's why you wake up at 3 in the morning. That's why you feel this constant restlessness, this sense that something's missing, that you should be doing something different, being someone different. Not because there's something wrong with your life, not because you haven't achieved enough, but because you've never experienced real silence. You've never known the peace that exists below the noise. And I know what you're thinking, but I can't control my thoughts. They just come. How do I make the mind stop? And you're right. You can't force the mind to stop. You can't fight thoughts. You can't suppress them through willpower. But you can do something different. You can stop feeding them. You can stop identifying with them. You can stop believing that every thought that passes through your mind is truth, is urgent, is you. Because here's the secret nobody told you. Thoughts aren't the problem. The problem is you think you are your thoughts, that you think the voice in your head is you. But it's not. That voice is just a voice. It's mental activity. It's a pattern. It's what the mind does. Just like the heart beats, the mind thinks. There's nothing wrong with that. The problem arises when you identify with the thinker, when you assume that because there's a thought, there's an I thinking, and then you become hostage to every thought that passes. But what if you're not the thinker? What if you're the space within which thoughts appear and disappear? What if you're the silence that allows noise to exist? And when you touch that, when you really touch that, even for a moment, you realize something extraordinary.
The you you're seeking isn't at the end of some journey. It's not waiting for you after you solve all your problems. It's not hidden in some distant monastery or advanced spiritual practice. It's here, now, in the quiet space between thoughts, in the silence that was always present, just waiting for you to stop making noise long enough to notice it. If something here is echoing, if you're starting to feel that silence even while I'm speaking, leave a comment. Just silence. Because recognizing that peace is here, that it always was here, is the first step to finally experiencing it. So let's explore this silence. Let's discover where it is and why you've spent your whole life looking for it in all the wrong places. Let's start by understanding what mental noise is, because you can't stop something you don't understand. Mental noise isn't thought itself. Thought can be useful. Thought solves problems. Thought creates, imagines, plans. Mental noise is uncontrolled thought. It's thought that happens without intention. It's thought that repeats infinitely, spinning in the same tracks, revisiting the same fears, replaying the same conversations. It's the voice that says, what if this goes wrong? What if I'm not good enough? What did that person mean by that? Why did I say that? I should have done it differently. Tomorrow I need to do this, this, and this. But what if I can't? And this voice, this tireless voice, never stops. It wakes up with you. It accompanies you through the day. It keeps you awake at night. It fills every moment of silence with worry, planning, judgment, comparison. And the most insidious part of this is you think this voice is you. You think these thoughts are your thoughts, that these worries are your worries, that this constant chatter is who you are. But ask yourself, if you are the voice, who's listening to the voice? If you are the thoughts, who's aware of the thoughts? If you're the mental chatter, who's noticing the chatter? There's something in you that observes, that witnesses, that's aware of all the mental activity without being the activity itself. And that something, that silent observer, is what you really are. Not the voice, not the thoughts, not the noise, but the consciousness that allows all of this to exist. And when you realize this, when you really realize this, something changes. You stop identifying with every thought. You stop believing every worry is real. You stop being dragged by the river of mental noise. And you begin to rest in what was always here. The silence, to peace. The stillness that was never disturbed by the noise, that was only forgotten. But how do you access this? How do you exit the noise and enter the silence? You don't exit. You simply stop identifying with the noise. And the moment you stop identifying, the moment you realize these thoughts aren't me, silence reveals itself. Not because you created it, but because you stopped creating the noise that was hiding it. Because here's the truth, you can't create silence. Silence isn't something you do. Silence is what remains when you stop doing. Silence is the natural state, the resting state, the state where the mind isn't constantly producing, generating, spinning. And in that silence, in that deep stillness, peace isn't something you find. Peace is something you are. There's a simple exercise that will change how you experience your mind. And it's this: pay attention to the space between thoughts. Because thoughts aren't continuous. They seem to be. They seem to flow in an uninterrupted stream. But if you look closely, if you really look, there are spaces, gaps, moments of silence between one thought and the next. Sometimes these spaces are a millisecond. Sometimes they're longer, but they're always there. And in those spaces, in those brief moments of silence, something is present. Something that isn't thought. Something that isn't mental activity. Just present. Awareness. being. And most people never notice these spaces because the mind is so used to jumping from thought to thought that it doesn't allow the space to be felt. It immediately fills the gap with the next thought, the next worry, the next distraction. But what if you didn't fill it? What if you let the space be? What if, just for a second, you rested in the silence between thoughts? Try now, just for a moment. Observe your thoughts. Don't try to stop them. Don't try to control them. Just observe. And when one thought ends before the next begins, notice the space. Notice the silence. Notice what's present when no thought is happening. That's what you are. Not the thoughts, but the space within which thoughts appear. And the more you notice these spaces, the more you rest in them, the more they begin to expand. The gaps between thoughts get longer, silence becomes more palpable. Not because you're forcing it, but because you're stopping feeding the noise. You're stopping identifying with every thought that arises. And in the absence of that identification, in the absence of that belief that I am my thoughts, natural silence emerges. And in that silence, you realize something no amount of thinking could show you. You realize that peace isn't a state you need to achieve. Peace is what you are when you stop disturbing your own stillness. Think about this. Think about a lake. When the lake is calm, when no stone is thrown, when no wind blows, the surface is perfectly smooth, perfectly clear, reflecting everything without distortion. But throw a stone, create waves, and the surface becomes turbulent. The reflection distorts. Clarity disappears. Your mind is like that lake, and thoughts are like stones. Each thought creates waves. Each thought disturbs the surface. And the more thoughts, the more stones, the more turbulent the water becomes. And so you spend your life trying to calm the waves, trying to make the lake quiet again, trying to force peace. But you don't need to calm the waves. You just need to stop throwing stones. And when you stop, when you really stop, the waves naturally calm. The surface naturally returns to stillness. Not because you did something, but because you stopped doing. And in that stillness, in that natural calm, you see clearly, you feel deeply, you rest completely. This is peace. Not the peace of having controlled the mind, but the peace of having stopped disturbing it. But here's something you need to understand. Most people are afraid of silence. They don't admit it. They're not consciously aware. But deep down, there's a fear, a deep discomfort with stillness. Because in silence, when the noise stops, when distractions disappear, you come face to face with yourself. And for most people, that's terrifying. Because there are things buried, things you've avoided feeling, things you've suppressed with constant busyness, with perpetual distraction, with the endless noise of doing. And when you get quiet, these things rise. The unprocessed emotions, the unfaced fears, the unfilled voids. And so, you understand why people fill every moment with noise, why they can't be alone for 5 minutes without grabbing their phone, why they always need music, conversations, something, anything to fill the silence. Not because silence is bad, but because what silence reveals is uncomfortable. And so you understand.
why people fill every moment with noise, why they can't be alone for 5 minutes without grabbing their phone, why they always need music, conversations, something, anything to fill the silence. Not because silence is bad, but because what silence reveals is uncomfortable. And yes, this is uncomfortable. Yes, this is scary, but it's also necessary. Because you can't heal what you don't feel. You can't process what you don't acknowledge. You can't integrate what you keep buried. And so silence, real silence, isn't escape. Silence is confrontation. It's the most honest confrontation you can have. The confrontation with everything you are, including the parts you rejected. And when you finally stop running, when you finally allow silence to reveal what needs to be revealed, something extraordinary happens. The things you thought would destroy you don't destroy.
They just pass, like clouds, like waves. And what remains, what was always there, is you, whole, complete, at peace. Not because you solved all the problems, not because you processed all the pain, but because you stopped resisting. You stopped fighting. You stopped trying to control the internal experience. And in the absence of resistance, in the absence of fight, there's peace. Not the peace of absence of challenges, but the peace of deep presence. The peace of being completely with what is. And this peace that comes from no longer running from yourself, is the only real peace. Because it's the only peace that doesn't depend on external circumstances. The only peace that can't be taken from you. Because it's in you. It is you. It always was. So how do you practice silence? How do you access this peace that was always here? The answer will surprise you. You don't practice. At least not the way you think. Most people approach silence as something to be conquered, as a state to be achieved through technique, through discipline, through effort. I'm going to meditate for 20 minutes. I'm going to silence my mind. I'm going to achieve peace. And so they sit, and immediately thoughts explode, and they fight. They try to force thoughts to stop. They judge themselves for not being able to do it right. And what should be a peace practice becomes another source of stress. But what if you're asking the wrong question? What if it's not about how do I create silence, but how do I stop creating noise? Because silence isn't something you do. Silence is what happens when you stop doing. So what does this mean practically? It means you don't sit to meditate with the intention of achieving something. You sit without agenda, without goal, without expectation that something should happen. You just sit and observe. Observe thoughts arising. Observe thoughts disappearing. Observe the space between thoughts without trying to change them, without trying to stop them, without judging whether they're good or bad. Just observing. And at first it seems like nothing's happening. Thoughts keep coming, the mind keeps chattering, And you might think, this isn't working, I'm not good at this, maybe I'm not made for meditation. But wait, keep observing, because something subtle is happening. You're creating distance. Distance between you, the observer, and the thoughts, the observed. And in that space, in that small space of separation, something loosens. You stop being so glued to every thought. You stop believing every thought is absolute truth. You stop automatically reacting to every mental movement. And as this distance grows, as you become more comfortable simply observing, thoughts naturally begin to decrease. Not because you're forcing them, but because you stopped feeding them with your obsessive attention. Thoughts are like children. If you give total attention to every tantrum, they'll keep throwing tantrums. But if you acknowledge them without emotionally engaging, without reacting, without making drama, they eventually calm down.
And then you begin to experience something new. Moments where no thought is happening. Gaps of silence. And in these gaps, you feel peace. Not the peace of having conquered something, but the peace that was always there, just waiting for you to stop making noise long enough to notice it. And the more you rest in these gaps, the more you allow silence to be, the more natural it becomes, until eventually you don't need to sit formally to meditate anymore. You can access this silence anytime, in the middle of a conversation, in the middle of work, in the middle of the chaos of daily life, because you realized that silence isn't absence of external sound. Silence is absence of identification with internal noise. You can be in a crowded, noisy, chaotic airport and still be in deep peace. Because peace doesn't depend on circumstances. Peace depends only on you stopping creating mental noise. So don't practice silence as technique. Don't treat this as one more thing on your spiritual to-do list. Simply stop. From time to time throughout the day, for just a few seconds, stop. Stop thinking.
Stop planning. Stop judging and just feel. Feel your breath. Feel your body. Feel the presence that you are. And in those moments of stopping, in those micro gaps of silence, you'll remember. You'll remember that peace was never something to be conquered. It was always something to be recognized. And that recognition, that simple recognition, is everything. There's a question you need to ask yourself. What kind of peace do I want? Because there are two types of peace, and most people spend their whole lives seeking the wrong kind. The first type is conditional peace. It's peace that depends on circumstances. I'll be at peace when I get that job. I'll be at peace when this relationship improves. I'll be at peace when I solve this problem. And you achieve these things. You get the job. The relationship improves. The problem is solved. And you feel peace for a while. But then something changes. New worries arise. New problems appear. And peace disappears. Because it was based on conditions. And conditions always change.
The second type of peace is unconditional peace. It's peace that doesn't depend on anything, doesn't depend on circumstances, doesn't depend on having solved all the problems, doesn't depend on everything being right. It's peace that's present even in the middle of chaos, even in the middle of pain, even in the middle of uncertainty. And this peace, this rare and precious peace, can only be found in silence. Not an external silence, but in internal silence. In the space inside you that's never disturbed by anything. Because here's the truth. Everything in your life will change. Everything. Relationships will change. Health will change. Circumstances will change. There's nothing external you can hold on to and say, this will give me permanent peace. But there's something internal that never changes. There's something in you that was present when you were a child and is present now. There's something in you that witnessed all the changes but was never changed. And that something is consciousness, presence, the eternal silence that allows everything to appear and disappear. And when you rest in that silence, when you really rest in it, you realize you don't need anything to change to be at peace. You don't need circumstances to be perfect. You don't need problems to be solved. Because peace doesn't come from having a perfect life. Peace comes from recognizing you are something that can't be disturbed by life's imperfection. Think about a movie screen. Movies appear on the screen. Violent movies, sad movies, scary movies. But the screen is never hurt by the content. The screen remains untouched, undisturbed, at peace, no matter what appears on it. You are the screen, not the movie. And when you realize this, when you really realize this, everything changes. You'll still have problems, you'll still feel pain, you'll still experience loss, but you'll no longer be identified with the drama. You'll no longer think the movie is you. You'll know you're the space within which the movie appears. And that space, that conscious silence, can never be disturbed. And that's why silence isn't escape. Silence isn't avoiding life. Silence is finally being able to live completely. Because when you're no longer identified with the drama, when you're no longer dragged by every wave of emotion, you can experience everything fully without being destroyed by it. You can feel pain without becoming the pain. You can experience fear without becoming the fear. You can go through loss without becoming the loss. Because you know, at a deep level, you're something that can't be lost. You're something that can't be hurt. You're something that can't be destroyed. And this knowing, this deep recognition of your true nature, is the only real peace. Because it's the only peace that can't be taken from you. The only peace that depends on nothing but your own recognition of it. If you felt this peace, even for a moment, even for a second, while listening to this video, share this video. Not for me, but because there's someone in your life who's seeking peace in all the wrong places, who's trying to control circumstances to feel safe, and they need to hear there's another way. That the peace they seek isn't out there, it's here. It always was, just waiting for them to stop looking long enough to notice it.
If you're here at 3 in the morning, if your mind won't let you rest, if you're tired of the constant noise, I want you to know something. The silence you seek isn't somewhere distant. It's not waiting for you at the end of some spiritual journey. It's not hidden in some advanced practice or meditation retreat. It's here, now, closer than your own breath. You don't need to create silence. You don't need to achieve peace. You don't need to become something different from what you are. You just need to stop. Stop creating noise. Stop identifying with every thought. Stop believing the voice in your head is you. And when you stop, when you really stop, silence reveals itself. Not because you found it, but because you stopped hiding it under layers of mental noise. And yes, at first, silence might be uncomfortable. It might bring up things you've avoided feeling. It might reveal voids you've filled with distraction. But don't run. Stay. Because on the other side of that discomfort, there's something no amount of noise can give you. There's peace. Real peace. Peace that doesn't depend on circumstances. Peace that can't be taken from you. Peace that was always here, just waiting for you to stop making noise long enough to notice it. And when you touch that peace, when you really touch that peace, everything changes. Not because your life becomes perfect, but because you stop needing it to be perfect to feel okay. You stop seeking peace in relationships, achievements, circumstances. You stop using the external world as escape from the internal world. And you begin to rest deeply, completely, in the silence that you are. So, next time you wake up at 3 in the morning, next time your mind is screaming, next time you feel without peace, don't grab your phone. Don't turn on the TV. Don't look for distraction. Just sit in the silence, in the darkness, and listen. Listen to what's below the thoughts. Listen to what's beyond the noise. Listen to the silence that was always listening to you, and rest in it, even if just for a few minutes. Because in those minutes, you'll remember something you always knew but forgot. Peace was never missing. You were just making too much noise to hear it. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for allowing a few moments of silence in a world that never stops screaming. And remember, you're not seeking peace. You're allowing the peace that was always here to finally be noticed. In the quiet between thoughts, you find everything. Because in the quiet between thoughts, you are everything. See you at 3 in the morning, in the quiet space where we always meet.